Good evening, everybody. Welcome to We the People of Eastern Kentucky. My name is Terry V. Salyer, and we have our lovely co-host here.
Lovely. Christopher Cody Allen.
Yeah, that's it. Cody Allen. Cool. A lot of topics we're going to talk about tonight. We got some upcoming people that we're going to have. We had a cancellation last week. We had an emergency, and Terry Beckett with SOAR, his family. So that's why Mr. Cody and I kind of filled in with some of the things we were talking about with the upcoming election and some of those things. And you can see that episode on Facebook or our Facebook page, or also on YouTube page, or listen to it on Spotify. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Good. But couple things we want to talk about. We the people of Eastern Kentucky got a lot of topics, a lot of people, and coming up. We got Larry from out there at Food Pantry. He's coming in July, and then also got a gentleman coming out of Hazard again. He's works at the foundation down there, and they work with young people and all that. And he'll be coming up here in July as well. And then most of July is booked up, so we're looking to possibly have, if you have an organization you want to promote and talk about some of the things that you're doing here in Eastern Kentucky, give us a buzz, Cody or myself. You can reach us on Facebook and all that, or on the YouTube page, and let us know about your interest of doing that. And that's what we're here for, is to promote and let people in Eastern Kentucky know what's going on, that we're the people out there, and that's what we want to do, is promote and help each other. Got a lot of events coming up pretty soon, don't we?
Very excited about those.
Yes. And we got some sponsors we'd like to thank tonight, so if you want to share that with them.
As always, we do want to thank all of our sponsors. These are sponsors for Appalachia Insider and We the People of Eastern Kentucky. We have Creekside Stitching and More, Appalachia TCG Tabletop Gaming Community, Royalton Community Council, available on their Facebook and webpage, McLaughlin County Public Library, Sloan Chiropractic, TechCollar.com, Jessica D. Williams Photography, and Appalachia Connection Podcast.
Yeah. And BML, Business Alliance.
Always.
Absolutely.
Sorry about that, Derek.
That's okay. That's no problem. Got some good feedback last week with some of our viewers and things, and that's what we want. We want you to let us know some of the topics that Cody and I are talking about up here. Some of them may be controversial from the standpoint of spirituality, and there were some comments last week that they felt that we got too in-depth in that and things, but spirituality is a big thing for people in Eastern Kentucky. It's part of our heritage. You know, there's a lot of churches we have around, and a lot of different doctrines and things like that. So if you have any specific items that you want to talk about, we can always address those down the road again. You know, if you have a spiritual question with this and that, you can contact us with that.
As we wanted to go ahead and annotate the fact that we are always aiming to be respectful of anybody's spiritual or religious beliefs here.
Yes.
The conversation that we had last week, and conversations that we may have again at some other point, are strictly conversations back and forth between Terry and I, to be able to understand spirituality, understand the religious context, and not to be in any way disrespectful in any shape or form to anybody's religion.
That's right. And, you know, that's a respectability, you know, because I've heard a lot of people in the past say, well, you know, I may disagree with it. That doesn't mean I don't like you, and I don't want to have anything to do with that stuff. Right. You know, we can express and share our hand of faith and fellowship and all that. And to be quite honest with you, in my personal life, I like my faith to be challenged, because that enables me to be able to see the direction that I need to live my life and in purpose and stuff, and also maybe may need to make some changes, you know, in the faith. But there's one thing that never changes, and that's the good Lord above, and He's in spirit and truth, and that's the way He's going to be. This week, been looking at a lot of things from the Christianity standpoint, you know, and I know a lot of people didn't, a couple didn't want to go that much in depth, but there's something, you know, with us at We the People, you know, of Eastern Kentucky, we try to hit up on three basic aspects: economic development, community involvement, and we also have political impact. And there's a topic that we're going to discuss probably briefly tonight and bring up some excerpts because tonight, as you asked for it, and we're going to give you some of the things that you've asked for. Some people were inquisitive and asked some questions about Christian nationalism, so we're going to talk about some of those aspects later on. But we got some great things coming up in the community. We got a 4th of July celebration here coming in McGoffin County, and there's going to be a lot of entertainment and a lot of good old food trucks out there and all that kind of stuff. So that'll be a lot. I think this weekend they're kicking it off with the firecracker pageants and things down at the cabins.
Mm-hmm.
And then they'll go into July the 5th, because everybody, the way the 4th falls this year on Thursday in the middle of the week, we don't know whether people's working or not or this and that. Excuse me, how they're going to take their time off. But a lot of the events will be on Friday night and then also Saturday night. Like I said, there'll be live music. There'll be a lot of entertainment going on, and there'll be a bunch of people down, particularly at the city park area. So come on out if you don't have anything to do on 4th of July. And like I said, there'll be some great food down there and entertainment. And we also got something coming up in, what is it, July?
Community Days in August.
But Community Days in August.
Back on the 4th of July, if you follow Appalachia Insider, we've made a post about this. On July 5th at 7 p.m., they're going to be holding a cornhole tournament, $20 to sign up. The winning team wins $100.
Wow.
This is going to be what's known as the Watermelon Social. It's kind of a big thing right here. People get to enjoy the watermelon, hear good live music. Yeah. The Troy Burchett Band and Zoe Howard and Yellow Line will be there.
That's on Friday night.
That is going to be on Friday night.
Yep.
This is going to be sponsored for McGoffin County by Main Street America and Kentucky Main Street Strong. Man. Appalachia Insider, I believe we're going to try to do something.
Yeah, we'll be down there, and we'll be interviewing people throughout the weekend, and then also getting your some feedback and some of the things that you liked about our group here, our talk show, and things of that nature. We'd love for you to be a guest. If you'd like to, come up and see us while we're down there, and we'll try to get you scheduled in the upcoming months and let people know about what you're doing.
One of the things that we're looking forward to doing as we continue to grow at Appalachia Insider and grow and expand our reach and expand the amount of people who work with us is we're looking forward to being able to get back to a time. Terry and I were just discussing it. When I was growing up during the Founders Day events and the community pageants, stuff like that, you could look up above the stands and see 3 or 4 different TV stands or television stations recording these pageants and running them out over TV. And then I looked around. The last one that I went to, there was nobody there doing it. So one of the things we're looking forward to doing with Appalachia Insider is being able to live stream these events, start bringing them out to people, let people see what it's all about, what we're all about here in McGoffin County.
Yeah, and give us your feedback to that, gang. I know that some of you probably noticed that some of the media has not been there, like you said, in the last previous events. Give us some feedback if this is something you'd like to see. If you'd like to see us there streaming things live, as far as the pageants and things like that, to see some of our local people, let us know that. Give us some feedback here. Give us an email, this and that, or whatever. It may be an event that you think that we need to cover. Please let us do that, because that's why we, the people of Eastern Kentucky, are here, and particularly in our back area. A lot of things on my mind. My mind was racing this past week, and
that's a dangerous thought.
It is a very dangerous thought, because there's a lot of concerns. We got some things coming up. The old NBA draft's going to be tomorrow night, and we wish all of our guys, Reed Shepard and Dillingham and Edwards, and one of my favorite players really of all times is Antonio Reeves. I love to watch him play. And then we've also got old Trey is going to be possibly, but we may have 5 guys drafted in the first 2 rounds game tomorrow night. So tune in on that and see where our Kentucky boys shake out there and all that kind of deal. It's kind of exciting. They had a great year last year, kind of ended in a little bit of a thud, but a good outcome for these individual guys and for where they're going to be. one of the things you can see, a lot of our previous players in the past have gone on and had a lot of success in the NBA, and really says a lot, I feel, for University of Kentucky and its programs that we had in the past. They're really excited about this year. We're going to have a lot different team this year. A lot of transfers in. We got a few new guys there, probably 3 freshmen actual, I think, on the team, and then you've got about 9 fifth-year transfer people in from other universities and things. So I was watching the first practice the other night, and just to see Mark Pope and what he does as far as our coach. I love watching him as a player when he and Jeff and them were on that championship team. But really excited about this year. I feel a resilience, in our program and stuff. So you look to support our guys tomorrow night, but then also the season that we got coming ahead. The baseball team did a great job this year. I mean,
first time I believe won to the World Series.
Yes, they actually won. They shared SEC championship regular season with Tennessee, and Tennessee, as we know, went on to win the Collegiate World Series there out in Omaha just recently. They won 3 games. Texas A&M gave them a run for their money, but it was really neat seeing 2 SEC teams in there, in the national championship. It was awesome to see. But Tennessee came out on top 6-5 in that deciding 3rd game, and hats off to them and congratulations. I don't usually like to congratulate Tennessee for anything, but I'm an SEC guy.
My 2 favorite college teams in the world are Kentucky and anybody that beats Duke.
There you go. I'm just about in those same lines.
That's just the way.
I'm not too much of a Notre Dame fan either.
I like the Irish. I do.
You like the Irish?
I do. I like the Irish. But that said, my personal note, my brother lives down towards Central Kentucky.
Oh yeah.
One of the things he's been enjoying doing with his kids this year is he's been going to watch a lot of the UK baseball.
Oh yeah.
And he's really been impressed with them. I have too.
Well, they won 60 games this year, which is a record for the school. It's the first time they had ever been to the Collegiate World Series. They were number 2 seed overall for the whole tournament. So, and then their coach just recently got Collegiate Coach of the Year, and Mingione, and he's a super Christian guy. Yeah. I mean, he's a big time believer, and a lot of that philosophy, I think, has bled over into the team, and they're very close, very loving bunch of guys, and really happy about their success. And then we got the big debate. You don't have a whole lot to say about that, I'm sure, but as we know, Thursday night, 9 o'clock Eastern time, we're going to have the big debate between a current president and a past president, and it'll be interesting to see.
Neither of which actually technically qualify to be on the debate stage.
Oh, is that right?
No.
No, but you're going to talk about RFK at all? Or
well, he's the only one that actually qualified to be on the debate stage.
Now explain.
He just won't be there.
Explain that to me.
All right, so to break it down, CNN released their list of qualifications.
Okay.
In the list of qualifications, what qualifies to be on the debate stage is there has to be 5 approved polls that CNN approves of. So these are different pollsters. Now, mind you, a lot of these pollsters have been pollsters throughout the history of the presidential. There was a presidential debate commission.
Okay.
Biden and Trump this year have decided to not use the presidential debate commission. Okay.
Yeah.
This has been the first time.
So that's how they didn't officially qualify.
So the first time, no, not exactly.
Okay.
The first time since the presidential debate commission was created, the president and the president that's attempting to run against him has decided decided not to use the official debate commission. Now, what that commission has always done is they looked at a list of polls. You had to qualify on so many polls, and at least I think it was, I believe before it was at least a 10% rating.
Yeah.
And then
double digits.
That was one of the main qualifications. So of these polls, that still held. CNN's qualifications, that still held. But CNN RFK qualified on multiple polls at above a 15% rating. But CNN has chosen to exclude those polls. They don't agree with those. Now, mind you, those polls have always been used. Okay, so this time they've decided not to. One of the other requirements was that whoever is going to be on the debate stage has to be in enough ballots to have a chance to get 270 electoral votes. Okay?
They have to be on the ballot pretty
They have
much
to be on the ballot
that. Yeah.
to get that. Right. Neither Trump nor Biden are on the ballot in any state at all. Now, they are the presumptive nominee.
Well, that's what I'm saying. They've not been nominated
right.
yet.
But they have not been nominated yet. So
right.
neither one of them technically qualify according to that. Now, the FEC ruled that because CNN come out with a statement of that they're the presumptive nominee, the FEC ruled and told CNN that you didn't say anything about presumptive nominee. You're violating your own rules, which in effect is a federal crime. It's trying to remember the exact crime that they named it as, election interference.
This year, I guess, is the earliest ever debate that we've had, between
right.
Political opponents and stuff like that. And there may be some philosophy or things behind that we can discuss later on. But I thought that was interesting to me, having it so early.
It is interesting. And then one of the things, and we can get a little bit more into that too. Like I said, neither Biden nor Trump, President Biden nor President Trump will actually technically be on the ballot or qualify for the 270 electoral votes. Now the catch is Robert F. Kennedy is technically only on the ballot, I believe, in 8 states right now. It's somewhere in the neighborhood of 83 electoral votes. That said, he's on the ballot in enough states, or he will be, he's turned in enough signatures. He's turned in 3 times the necessary amount of signatures for enough states to put him at 318 electoral votes. He's just waiting on the Secretary of State to validate the signatures. Now, the Secretary of States for each one of these states is either a Democrat or a Republican, and they don't want him on that stage.
They're partisan.
So they're not going to validate the signatures in time for him to be on the ballot, for him to be able to qualify for the debate. Now, that I don't understand why he wouldn't have saw this coming. He did see that they would probably try to get rid of, for example, the state of New York, I believe, is currently suing, trying to get him off the ballot because he has already qualified for the state of New York.
Okay. I was curious. Now, did RFK start out on the Democratic approach? Was he trying to get the nomination and win the primary democratically? And then when he basically saw that the support was not going to be there, is that when he turned to an independent?
It wasn't even necessarily the support. So, support is one thing. Support means that I'm going to back you in your candidacy. Right. It was actively trying to block him. So, for example, when he started running as a Democrat in the primary, I believe it was the state of New Hampshire passed a law. It was New Hampshire or Nevada. I can't remember which one for sure. Passed a law that specifically said that if past this date you have ran as a primary competitor to President Biden in the state, they will take all of the electoral votes that you get and give to the Democrat candidate, which is Biden. So he had already campaigned in that state. Yeah. He had already done that, which means that any votes that he got during the primary would automatically go to Biden. Another example is Florida. There was Robert F. Kennedy, Cenk Uygur, who he would have had to went to the Supreme Court to actually get to even be president. But Cenk Uygur, Robert F. Kennedy, and Marianne Williamson were all primary candidates. Okay? Mm-hmm. Marianne Williamson was polling somewhere in the neighborhood of 8%, which is well enough to be on the ballot. 5% puts you on the ballot. She was somewhere in the neighborhood of 8%. In the state of Florida, Robert Kennedy was polling somewhere in the neighborhood of, I think, 18 to 20. Okay? The state of Florida made an executive decision, the Democratic Party made an executive decision that said they just didn't turn in any other names besides Joe Biden for the presidential primary. They just wouldn't allow him to be on the ballot, period. So that's when decided, stuff like that is the reason they decided to run it.
So basically he left the Democratic primaries and then went as an independent.
And then started to run as an independent. I actually watched when he made the live declaration.
There's a lot of pluses and minuses, I think, as being an independent. I know in Kentucky because there at one time I looked, there's a lot of restrictions about, when you got to file. all the filing periods for Democratic and Republicans are in January. And I think it's like January the 7th or the 15th or something like that. But if you wanted to run in the general election as an independent, you would have to actually file, I think, into April or whatever. And so there's some opportunities there, but they had to have so many signatures to be able to qualify to get on the November ballot and things. So a little bit tougher here in Eastern Kentucky to be able to do that, but independence is something that it's a growing part of our political system. We see a lot more people that are going to the independents because of, the partisan stuff that's happened so much lately or whatever. But
Terry, we're going to have to adjust the camera. The folks are saying that the camera's sideways and they want us to try to fix it.
Oh, the live one?
Yeah. The live
Okay,
one.
all right. Yeah.
So Terry, you hold it down for just a second.
All right, we'll do that. All right, we'll just keep her going. Really excited about opportunities, that's coming down the road. There's a lot of primaries that are going on right now, actually, in a few states to be able to do that. And so we'll have some election returns happening around in other states, right now. Even though the general election is not to November, there are a lot of, I think New York right now has got one going on that's a congressional election up there that a lot of people are going to have to see and be able to vote in that, because there's certain individuals that have not decided to run again. So there's runoff elections and things like that are going on. But elections all over the country. It's going to be happening now all the way through till November. But I'm encouraged to see what's going to happen on Thursday night. The last debate was kind of heated between the two, and it kind of got off the rocker and all of that, and it kind of got more into a mudslinging thing. And there's a lot of people wondering what kind of debate it's going to be Thursday.
Well, have you looked over the rules that they've set for the debate?
Oh yeah.
I think that personally, this is my opinion, Trump made a mistake accepting these rules.
Is that right?
And well, here's my theory on it.
Okay.
Trump's a crowd player.
Sure.
So, for example, when he was president, he would pack the room with 200 reporters and bounce them off of each other. Now, whether you like him or not as a president or even a person, you can't deny the guy's funny.
Well, he's an entertainer.
He's an entertainer.
He comes
He's
from
hilarious.
the entertainment background, yes.
Right, and he feeds off of a crowd.
Oh, yeah,
okay?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So the rules that they've got set up right now is that neither Biden or Trump's teams will be in the room. It'll simply be Jake Tapper and what's the other gentleman? In the other reporter that's going to be
the moderators.
Yeah, the other.
Well,
moderator.
You've got Bash is going to be there. Miss Bash,
Jake Tapper, and the blonde-headed gentleman that's related to the Rothschilds.
Oh, you're talking about.
Anyway, whatever.
Anderson Cooper.
Anderson Cooper.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so it's going to be Jake Tapper, Cooper, and Bash.
Okay.
Now it's going to be them, Trump and Biden, and the camera crews. That's it.
There's not going to be any audience.
There's going to be zero audience.
Really?
And anybody that's ever done this. Now, Terry and I have spent quite a bit of time sitting in front of the camera, and you get sort of used to it. Yeah. But if you're not used to sitting talking to an empty room, it's a nerve-jangling experience. I mean, and that's not Trump's game. That's not what he does.
Yeah, he likes people.
Right. So one, that right there, that hurt him.
Two.
No, there's more.
Okay, go ahead. Well, yeah, there was one that kind of zinged me when I got it, but go ahead. Yeah, your thoughts.
The number two is, one of the rules is that they will have the ability to shut off the mics.
Yes, that's what I was going to bring.
The moderators are going to be able to shut off the mics.
Yeah.
Some of the best.
While the others time and they're speaking, that mic will be shut off so they can't contradict what they're saying.
Right, and then that's one of the things. Now keep in mind, it can bite Trump. It can bite Trump too. The first time he debated Biden in the first election, nobody could stand him. It actually hurt him because he was on tilt the whole time.
Absolutely.
Okay, but some of the greatest moments during his political campaign was, for example, when he called out Hillary Clinton. And then anybody that's around your age has to remember the Ronald Reagan debate when Reagan looks over at Nixon and said, "I pay for this, sir." Talking about the mic.
Oh, yeah.
That's a back and forth that's not going to be possible now because they're going to shut the camera off. And Trump's a back and forth kind of guy.
Yeah.
Biden's going to be able to hold it together. Here's my thought. because President Biden has always been able to rise to the occasion.
Yeah.
And the problem is that there's so many videos online of the gaffes, and don't get me wrong, there are plenty of them.
Oh, yeah, sure.
There are so many videos online of him just staring off into space or walking off and trying to shake hands with invisible people or whatever, that people already have such a low bar that if he just shows up and doesn't zone completely out or have a Mitch McConnell freeze-up moment, they're going to say Biden won this debate.
Well, it's a situation there, and this is the thing that disturbs me, is I feel that you can run a clean campaign or you can run a dirty campaign. And my biggest concern about Trump is, now instead of calling him Sleepy Joe, he's Jacked Up Joe, where he thinks, we're going to shoot him up with something in his butt before he walks out there. He even said that.
No, they will do that.
Well,
and I'm not saying, listen, this isn't a smear. You can actually Google this. President Obama was on, and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying they give him illegal drugs. They ain't putting him on meth.
Right.
But they absolutely, before they go out on a debate, do give them an IV of different concoctions and chemicals that keep them
dehydrated.
Focused.
They don't want to be dehydrated.
Yeah, they keep them clear and focused. This is a fact. We know this to be true. Okay. So, like I said, it's not a smear. Trump will be on the same thing. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
One
of the big concerns that I have in the presidential election and things is this talking about age. I've seen Joe Biden for over 40-some years, have all the respect in the world for him. Did I agree with everything that Joe says or does or whatever? No, there were things that when he was a senator that in some of the hearings and stuff,
not the senator from MDMA,
with Thomas and all that kind of deal, when they were approving him for the Supreme Court,
not the senator who made it almost impossible to sue a credit card.
Well, I don't know about that.
Not the senator who allowed a 36%
interest
rate.
Like I said, I didn't agree with everything.
Oh,
but,
no.
I think he's done a pretty good job. But one thing that I've learned, you all, and I can speak to it from experience, 81 to 78 is not a big difference. I am 68 now, and one thing that I have to say to everyone out there in our audience here in Eastern Kentucky is the fact that you can see a difference when people get older. I don't feel that it affects their wisdom or their direction or the people that they can surround themselves with, but physically and mentally, you got to imagine the pressure and the stress that they're going on in the job that they're doing. But physically and mentally, I have seen it in my life. The last 10 years, seen a tremendous difference. And one of the biggest things that I saw recently in my life is my stepdad. He recently passed a couple of weeks ago, and he was 91. Tall stature man from McGoffin County here. Loy Reed was his dad, but Bill Reed was his name. He went by William, but very athletic all his life, and through his 80s, very mobile and agile and all that. And just within the last 5 years, you can see a deterioration of people, and it's a commonplace. Was he any or less of a man? No. I feel wisdom in age brings greater ideology and stuff to be able to solve problems and stuff. But I'm not into this age thing, because anybody that understands, and my background is political science, anybody in our age bracket's got to understand that things can happen in a different way, and be able to interact with people during the stages of their life. And wisdom is a great thing. Even Solomon said that, woe is me. If there was one thing he could have done, he said, I would have focused more on wisdom and prayer and all that kind of deal instead of the stuff that he did. But I don't think age is a problem. And these people surround themselves with outstanding people that can constantly...
Now, see, I got to disagree. So let's put it into context.
So you're saying that the president makes all the decisions. Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying the president makes the majority of the decisions.
Okay. Well,
The
I
president-
don't
the
agree
president-
with that.
The president
at
wakes
all.
up every day. There is no day. Somebody said this the other day, and I thought it was brilliant.
Mhm.
There is no day where the president wakes up that somebody looks at him and goes, "Great job, Mr. President. There is nothing wrong."
Sure. Absolutely.
Every day, as soon as his eyes fly open,
Yeah.
here's what's about to destroy the world.
Oh, he's briefed all the time in
Here's
the morning and all that.
who's
Yeah.
about to kill who. Here's what's
Sure.
about to destroy the
Sure.
world. As soon as his eyes fly away. But now let's put a little context into what we're thinking about.
But you've got a cabinet to be able to do things from the
Right.
functionality of the people that's happening
But the
in the
final
state.
decision belongs to the commander in chief.
Well, he has to make the call,
He
but he gets all that influence and that wisdom and all that from all the people that are working with him to be able to make that call.
Yeah, I mean, I got the concept of a board of advisors, but the
Yeah.
board of advisors can only impart so much information. You're only going to be able to absorb so much, and then you got to make a final decision, and that's what gave Barack Obama gray hair. But let's put a little context into
he
this.
got
Okay?
gray hair. He did.
Let's
yeah.
put some context into this, because here's the situation. Here's the way you got to think. We've normalized the fact that centenarians, that the elderly have become the commanders in chief of this country to the point that, and this is what put it into context for me the other day. I started thinking about this. Consider this. George Herbert Walker Bush,
Sure.
president during 9/11,
Yeah.
early 2000s, is right now younger than Joe Biden and Donald Trump.
Sure.
This man hasn't been president in 20 years, and is currently was president 20 years ago,
Sure.
and is currently younger than our current president.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, that's why I say age doesn't matter. Because he became president at a younger age, same way with Obama, all this stuff.
He wasn't
Now,
that young.
the biggest problem we have in our country, in my opinion, is this. Congress has let us down. And the reason I say that is you've got people that's got the average, 25, 30 years as being a congressman or a senator or this and that, or they're a congressman then become a senator and all this. These are the people supposed to be passing our laws.
Oh,
And
concur with
I
that.
see a deadlock, and it's even gone so bad partisan that no matter what the other person brings up, the other's going to vote against it. We can see it almost straight down the line of parties and all that kind of deal. Rather than representing their people and voting what their people, who they're representing, their attitude, their direction, their mind thought, it's all along party lines.
Yeah,
and
but until the repeal of Citizens United, it's going to stay that way.
well, I think it can change, and that's why
It can. They would
constantly.
They would have to pass a congressional law.
Well, the easiest thing to change is to vote these people out. That's the bottom line, And I was talking to a lot of leadership today as I was going around Salyersville here, and there's a tremendous amount of Democrats. But they say, oh, we're in the minority now. But they're not, because in McGoffin County here, there's 5,300 registered Democratic voters, 38 Republican. A lot of the Democrats have switched over and become Republicans and this and that. But the thing that hit me so much was they're not even going to speak up. They're not even going to go against the norm. And they say, yeah, I'm an old-time Democrat and all this kind of deal. But they're not even going to try to push their agenda or try to do that because of
I would be willing to
the outspoken people.
I'd be willing to bet that 2/3 of the people that you just named, including Democrats and Republicans, now identify as independent. Now, they may not have re-registered, but they identify as independent.
It depends if action or what their political basis is or whatever.
Let me put it.
I think that everybody should be independent.
Let me put it this way. I think
that's how I think.
I think 2/3 of the people that you just named off that are Democrat and Republican don't truly identify with their party that they're registered with anymore.
Well, I don't know about that. I know that this is the way I feel about it, and I've talked to a lot of people, being out there in the trail and stuff. You might be a Republican, you might be a Democrat, but when you go into that poll booth, you decide on who you want to vote for. I know, and just to give you an example, in my lifetime, yeah, I'm a registered Democrat, yeah, but I've probably voted for more Republicans in McGoffin County in the past 10 years than I have Democrats. And it's because I vote on that person. And I think what we've done when we go into that voting booth, if we can say then do things just in the way it should be, is you're looking at that person and voting for that person. That was the purpose of me last week, to bring up some of the things about the Republican nominee. Is you got to look at people's background. You got to look at what they've done. You got to look at what their goals and ambitions are. And I never see any platform, I don't see any policies not to help the majority of people or the working class or whatever that needs to help.
There's only one candidate that's actually talking about that stuff.
Well, I know it's your guy, you think RFK, but...
oh, it's just a fact. The rest of them, both of the other candidates right now...
I didn't see RFK out in the labor lines or in the auto things and stuff like that, negotiations.
Both of the other candidates right now, both of the other candidates are democracy's at stake.
Yeah, it sure is.
It's existential.
That's right.
That's what one candidate
It
is.
It is.
The other candidate's saying, look how bad it is.
Yeah.
Neither one of them are saying, here's what we're going to do to make everybody's life better. We're not going to focus, and this is going to be controversial. We're not going to focus on little minority group over here. We're not going to focus on little minority group over here. We're going to do what John F. Kennedy said, and we're going to raise the tide for all ships. Yeah. And this is how we're going to do it.
I think that, and that's a good thing, and I agree with that philosophy, somewhat, because that's kind of what I feel in my heart process. But you got to have leadership to be able to do that. That's the biggest concern that I have in this. I like a lot of RFK's ideology and stuff, and sometimes people think he's a little bit off the wall and things with the vax and all that deal. But
yeah, see, I think that's hilarious.
I think he has a lot of good ideas, but I'm really concerned about his physical health and the stuff that he's been through.
Listen,
and
he can do 15 pull-ups right now, and I tell you I can't.
Well, the ability to be able to give us that leadership, that's just where I think it's lacking there or whatever. And even a lot of people in his family, half of them, have resorted to that where they're still supporting, the Democratic ticket.
They just released information today, I don't know if you saw this, that there is a rumor that President Trump is going to choose Vivek Ramaswamy as his running mate.
Gosh, I hope not.
And then there is also another rumor.
That scared me to death.
There is also another rumor.
Talk about the supreme yes man.
Yeah, there is also another rumor, and this is a rumor, but it comes on pretty good authority that some of the Democratic power players, the money behind the throne, so to speak,
sure, yeah,
have stated that if this debate doesn't go well with President Biden, and they believe that President Trump wins the debate, and it becomes very obvious that he won,
sure, that
they are considering replacing Kamala Harris with Hillary Clinton.
Well, that would be a far-fetched. You talk about what is it, crazy ideology or whatever. I don't see that happening. I think Hillary's kind of played her cards out, her hands out.
Let me tell you something. This is absolute fact, and this isn't conspiracy theory in any way. Mm-hmm. The Clintons still control a lot of power in D.C.
Well, I mean, they've still got a lot of influence and stuff. I agree and stuff like that, but they give a lot of consultation, I'm sure, to the current regime or whatever. Well, we can be here and debate all night what's going to happen between those two.
Debate.
That's right, we can debate it. But one of the things that you all brought up to us, and it may be not a topic that some of our viewers want to talk about, but it's a growing trend that's happening. And like I mentioned last week, there's been a change, particularly within the, as you could say, born-again believers, Christianity groups within our country, particularly within the last 25 years of getting, conservatism mixed up with a political ramification and basically calling it Christian nationalism. And no one really spoke or went out against this movement or whatever based on the fact of they didn't know what it was. And there's a lot of pastors right now that are jumping on that bandwagon. There's a lot that are finally stepping out and saying that, this is something we need to look at. And there's a lot of myths that tonight I want to kind of bring up, and maybe we can have some discussion points on them because some of our viewers has wanted to have more information about this. And what really is Christian nationalism? Is it different from patriotism? And basically, kind of a definition is Christian nationalism emphasizes the idea that a nation's identity is inherently linked to its Christian faith. And this often includes a belief that the country is founded on Christian principles and its laws and policies should reflect that Christian values. Now, myself personally, I kind of go along with that because from the moral standpoint, I like what that's saying. But there's a big but there. We weren't a Christian nation. We weren't found on Christian principles. We were found on religious freedom. And the persecution that was going on in UK and up there in England at the time, the people left England and came to the States, the colonies, so they would have, the Puritans and the Quakers and this and that, because they were kind of outcast over there, to where they came here for religious freedom, to be able to practice what they want to and things. Well, what is happening is there's a lot of people from the historical standpoint say, proponents often assert that the nation was founded as a Christian nation, and that any deviation from this heritage is a departure from the original intent of the founding fathers. Well, not all the founding fathers were Christian. They weren't. And I mean, that's evident. Ben Franklin was, one that attended church and things like that, but he was not known, for the Christian aspects and belief of it. Yeah. This can involve a selective interpretation of historical events and figures to support their narrative. And
here's the problem. Here's the problem with what you're thinking, though, Terry. And
okay.
This is my thought on this.
Sure.
At the time, so you brought up a good example. The Puritans left England
sure.
to get away from the church and to have their own form of the religion.
Right.
But their own form of the religion was still a Christian religion. So they left the Catholic Church. But the majority of, at what you would call at that time, modern and civilized culture was still a Christian culture. Now, there might have been differences in Catholicism. They might have chose not to believe in Catholicism.
Yeah,
they might have been
Martin Luther and all
So,
that.
for example, they might have wanted to be Southern Baptist.
Sure.
They might have wanted to be Pentecostal. But
right.
they still were all following the same general, overall, overarching religious values, religious sect.
Well,
and when the Constitution of the United States was written, it was written with the understanding that the majority of the people in this country were European and were following, maybe not necessarily Catholicism, but some form of this religious doctrine.
Mm-hmm.
So the concept behind we are not going to have a forced religion means that we're not going to allow the state to say you are all Catholic,
sure.
or you are all Baptist,
yeah.
or you are all Pentecostal. But it never crossed their mind, I'm assuming, this is an assumption,
mm-hmm.
it never crossed their mind that at some point there could be statues of Satan inside of a courthouse.
I don't think there's a lot of Satanists that came to the States to be able to
so
practice that part of religion.
The concept of okay, well now we're going to have to, because at that time, keep in mind, they didn't even have Buddhists.
Sure.
The concept of we're going to have all these religions coming from all these places, that I doubt that ever rang to them. The concept was, okay, well, you're not going to force me to be a Catholic, or you're not going to force me to be a Baptist, or you're not going to force me to be a Pentecostal.
Right. They wanted freedom.
Right.
Yes, the freedom to worship.
But it was the freedom to worship interestingly enough, the same God.
Well, you go back to the early church too. You got Martin Luther with the Lutherans and things, and the break off of the Catholicism, the Catholic Church and stuff, and the Episcopals were big in England at the time, and the Quakers were the ultra conservative people, and the Puritans, so they felt like they were being left out or forced, or saying you're kind of this foreign group, Well, that's the same thing that's happened here in a sense, because
it's all the same.
Because historically, we're talking about morality, and the bottom line goes of Christian principles. Principles are important. I believe in them. I consider myself a ultra modern moderate person. I have a lot of conservative beliefs because I believe in a lot of the Christian aspects and things. But the one thing that, in my case, which goes into another part of one of the things they brought up, was moral superiority. And a lot of times people were led to believe if you don't believe like us, then you're whacked, and because we believe this way, we're better than you, and because we have this particular type of faith in things. And
I agree with it.
I have always had the notion that, and I'm a First Amendment person. You need to have that freedom, much like they had the freedom when they came over.
That is the foundational belief of this country.
But I don't believe that morality is something that should be legislated, because if we get in there and we pass laws and things in a certain direction based on Christian principles or based on some other's principles and this and that, we are forcing and doing the same thing as happened in the beginning days of colonization of America. We're forcing those people into a certain direction with Christian nationalism, as this is the way that you must feel and believe. And if you're not of the right.
Okay, so
you're a minority. You're outcast. And the biggest thing that I have, like I said before, I've been a Christian now for 58 years. And the one thing that's really hurt me in my faith and my walk through this time is people that become critical and become a series of do's and don'ts, and these are the law, and you got to live by the law. Now, don't get me wrong. I know Moses come across with the 10 Commandments and all that, but as Jesus came, he said, there's 2 commandments I give you. Number 1 is to love me before any other God. Number 2 is to love your neighbor as you love yourself.
Jesus also said, I'm not here to change the law.
Well, that's right, but he is to fulfill it. That's why he did, and that's why he said, these are the 2 things that you got to do. Now, do we do those today? No. Do we love everybody else like we love ourselves? No. We developed in a society out there to where I'm right and you're wrong.
Yeah, but see, I agree with that.
I don't agree with it at all.
Let me tell you why.
Because I should respect, even though you believe the same way, and even maybe challenge my faith to do that. But I'm not going to condemn you because of what you do believe. We, a lot of time as church people, get out there and we want to throw the stones at somebody else because they don't live the life they think that we should live.
But see, I got to counter you, Terry, because I absolutely believe that there is a such thing as right and wrong. And I think there is a such thing. I think there is a such thing as a cultural and moral superiority, and even a religious superiority. And I'll give you a perfect example. And here's the reasoning why. And the reason is because there is a such thing as right and wrong.
Sure.
Okay, so you can say that.
So what is wrong considered?
It is objectively true that it is better to help an old lady across the street than to kick a baby in the head.
Well, why do you do that? Why do you help an old lady across the street?
Because one is right.
How do you know? Who's told you that?
Because it's objectively true. That's my point.
Well, I know. How did you come to that conclusion? Did somebody tell you that? Somebody show you that? Somebody teach you that? Somebody say that that's the right way to do it? Is that more important than this over here of feeding a guy that's homeless and out here and doesn't have any money and can't take care of himself, maybe down on his luck or whatever? Should we help that little old lady across the street and let him still go out and be not fed?
You're not discussing whether or not something is objectively true. See, what I'm saying is there is objective truth.
Okay.
Now, you're discussing the level of objective truth. So you could say...
There is no level.
So, well, hear me out.
There's truth and there's not.
No, there's not.
Well, there's no gray area, I don't think. If you're that, you're not a law person or right or wrong.
I agree with you. There is objective truth.
Yeah.
And objective truth. So, for example, there are cultures and religions in this world right now where it is still perfectly fine to own another human.
Oh, yeah, slavery.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
So I don't feel like I'm being wrong by saying that my religious or cultural belief that is objectively wrong and that our culture is superior to theirs is correct.
So you feel that you need to own slaves? Is that what you're saying?
No, the opposite.
Oh.
I'm saying that our culture...
You think more people need to be free or what?
I'm saying that our culture, the United States culture, which is based on a foundation of Christian belief, Now, whether or not it's based on the foundation, the word God is actually in the "We the people" in order blah 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 blah.
Yeah, but God is not in the Constitution.
It's not in the Constitution.
It's not mentioned. No.
There is a cultural.
And they did that for a reason.
There is a cultural foundation of Christianity in this country. Do you agree with that?
I think that people have a general consensus of a godly person. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Now, but only 21% actually supposedly believe that.
Here's a perfect.
So that's 79% of people in the United States that do not believe that there is a God.
Well, that's the thing, though, Terry, and that's the interesting thing. And I was discussing this with somebody the other day. We were discussing immigration policies, because a lot of this actually revolves. A lot of immigration policy revolves around that. Now, up until the 90s, the late 80s and into the 90s, there was an idea when people come over here through Ellis Island, the Irish, the every other culture that come here. Mm-hmm. The idea was, I'm going to go to America. I'm going to learn to speak English.
Sure.
And I'm going to assimilate into the culture because I want to be an American.
Why?
Why? Because we were seen as the shining beacon on the hill.
Because they couldn't be what they wanted to be where they came from.
No.
And that's the biggest problem we have with immigration right now.
I disagree with you. They came here with a desire to be American, to assimilate into the American identity, to the American culture.
They came here because America was freedom from the oppression and the control and all those things that they've had. And that's the problem I have with immigration too as well.
How many people throughout history have came here and said, I can tell you, I can name 3 immigrants that I know personally that are probably more patriotic Americans than most Americans, the natural born Americans that I know, because they came here with a single desire. I want to assimilate into American culture, American society, and I want to be an American. I love this country.
Yeah, absolutely.
So when you get away from that, and you and I had this discussion the other day, when you get away from that, see, we were always called the melting pot.
Well, in the beginning, because we needed people here, I guess.
We were a melting pot. And the idea of a melting pot is, think of it like soup. You add all these different ingredients from different places, and you stir them all together, and they assimilate into one soup. And it makes a beautiful dish. But if you add all these ingredients, and the ingredients are like oil and water, and they all have their own separate thing they're doing over here, then the soup doesn't get made, and you get a bunch of ingredients fighting over who's going to be superior.
I don't believe there's any superior part. I mean, that the point that hit me in this last week was, I was listening to Michael W. Smith. He's a contemporary Christian artist, been around, won Grammys, 40 Dove Awards and this and that, but he was sharing his personal life. And he said, I can kind of sum up the situation in our world today right now. And this is where I think we failed a lot. If all the churches in all the world decided just to love people and to reach out and help people, if they needed help, then there would be no homeless. There would be no people that would be hungry. And we have, as a church or as a group of people, not lived up to that reputation that was founded as our patriots in the beginning, of how we banded together and do that.
See, I don't even necessarily agree with it. When we founded this country, we never even had any kind of social programming. When the Irish came over here through Ellis Island, if you didn't get a job, you starved to death. As a matter of fact, a lot of immigrants left the country who couldn't find work because we had no social programming whatsoever.
Well, I don't think anybody does.
This country you either assimilated or die.
Well,
so the concept of we're just going to love you to death didn't exist back then.
Well, I disagree with that totally, because I think the foundation of things and people, you go the expansion from the east to the west of, going out in the plains, it was people together and wagon trains and people stood together to be able to fight, for the land and for that and the patriot part of that.
I would agree.
And we were given opportunities to do that.
Small groups, I would agree, but I'm talking
in your urban cities too.
I'm talking about the nation as a whole.
Well, I am
you're
too.
Saying community came together in small groups and helped each other survive. I agree with that. That's humanity throughout here. That's the way we became the dominant species on the planet.
Yeah.
Humanity, we don't have claws, we don't have fur, we die in the elements. The fact is, the only way we can survive as a species is if we come together and work as a collective unit.
One of the most truthful statements that I've seen this week is, there are 8 men in this world have just as much money as 3.5 million people.
Yes.
And we're saying that we have a problem here. 8 people in the whole world makes as much or has as much money as 3.5 million people. And those 3.5 million people are outcasts or homeless or whatever. But, I'm of the old adage of the golden rule. You got to treat people like you want to be treated. If a person's down, the old days, if a barn burnt down, he's hanging the back of it. Huh?
I don't think the golden rule's in the Bible.
Well, yes, it is.
Where?
Yeah, it is, because Jesus said you got to love your brother as much as you love yourself.
Right, but
and if you're going to love somebody else,
the actual quoted golden
as much
rule,
yourself,
do unto others as you would have others do
well,
unto
that's
you.
the
I don't
point.
think that's in the Bible anyway.
Well, it's in there, yeah, because it could be paraphrased or whatever. But the point is, we miss a world. We're living on fear. We're living on people that's pitting themselves against each other. And my personal opinion, it's been in the leadership of our country that we've had. There's nobody right now, and there's no leadership that are standing out and saying, look, we all need to come together, and we need to work this, and we need to work it with each other, and we need to love each other, because to me, that is the solid Christian principle, is based on those 2 commandments that, is given by Jesus. God loved us enough that he sent somebody in person, in the flesh, to be able to hopefully explain to people of what his love was for people. Constantly throughout the Bible, we've got people that disobey God, turn their back on God, worship idols and God, but the lovingness of our God was, he didn't say, well, you've done this, so boom, this is the way you're going to be. He was a loving God. He was a forgiving God. But we, as a nation, don't have that attitude.
Well, as in this nation,
and what happens is people become separated, and it's historically basically saying right there from the morals. Well, if you don't feel that morals should be legislated, well, that's fine. If you feel morals should be legislated, and we're into that right now in our country with some of the decisions that are being made.
They have all throughout the history of this country.
Well, not necessarily like we are right now. When it gets into First Amendment, where you have your rights to be able to do something, and you're going to have somebody tell me this is the way I should believe, or this is the direction you need to go.
The First Amendment is quite literally a moral legislation.
But it says you have the freedom to be able to express yourself, but it doesn't say your freedom is supreme. If it infringes on somebody else's rights, then that's another thing, I think, from the moral standpoint.
Well, see,
because your belief system is different than mine, but I have to respect what you believe. I do.
Here's the thing.
But I live my life based on what is revealed to me, and through my prayer life, through my Bible study, and through my fellowship with other Christian people. But I really feel, rather than saying, oh, everybody else is so bad and this and that and condemning and all this, we got to get back to the basics, where we've got to start caring for people.
Well, I agree with that.
And loving people.
Hear me out.
And picking people up when they're down. That's a moral issue that only we can do, not being legislated or told that we got to do it.
All right, now hear me out. Now, see, I agree with you there.
And you got a lot of people that also say the second part of it. Okay, well, here's the second part of it. Those same 8 guys think the problem in our world is welfare and food stamps.
Okay.
But you've got 8 guys that have as much money as 3.5 million people, and they say the problem and the root of our problem in our society today is food stamps and welfare.
Okay, now here's my 2 statements.
Excuse me?
Would you listen just a second? Here's my 2 statements. Statement number 1. In this country, starting about the 1980s, the golden rule for this country became whoever has
Were
the
you
gold
born
makes
in
the rules.
1980s?
85.
Oh, okay.
Whoever
so you're
had,
5 years old. All
whoever
right.
has the gold makes the rules. That's the golden rule in this country.
The power's one thing.
All right. So now that said, what you're talking about loving everybody and helping everybody, I completely 100% agree with.
Yeah.
The problem that you have, and this has been the case throughout history, this is why you were talking about Christianity and why I said, well, I kind of disagree with you. Here's why. Mm-hmm. And we know this to be a fact. If you took 10 people and you stuck them on an island and they had no contact with the outside world,
sure,
within 2 generations of people, those people, let's say they had no knowledge of the outside world, those people would have developed some sort of religion. We know that because religions have popped up all across the world in all different societies. The reason is because there has to be an underlying unifying belief system for a culture to function. Because at some point there will be disagreements between this group and this group. But the thing that they will have in common is that, yeah, I disagree with you about this and you disagree with me about this, but we still have this unifying belief system that this is what connects us.
Well, so you're saying that basically you got to live by rules and laws and all that kind of stuff. Is that what you're saying?
You have to have some sort of unifying thing. Mm-hmm. When we got away from the ideas of religion, so around that, the 1950s was very religious. We know this to be true in the United States. In the 60s,
there's a lot of revivals.
Right. In the 60s, they got away from it. They started having their big rebellion.
Well, you got into flower children.
You got into flower children.
My time of the.
Right. You had the people that.
I was a hippie. You
had the people that rebelled against unified religion, organized religion, all that stuff.
The drug scene got into that too.
In the 70s, still coming into the drug scene. Into the 1980s, that's when we started getting into the greed is good ideology.
Well, it was I think it was the Me Foundation, really.
It was. But keep in
mind.
Heck with
everybody else, I'm out for myself.
Keep in mind that once it took until the 1960s before we got away from a religious foundation in this country. When that happened, what replaced it? Patriotism. We had, and don't get me wrong, it was after the 60s, after the Vietnam War.
I don't see that at all. I don't see where patriotism has ever taken over anything.
After the Vietnam War, coming into the Reagan administration, the old American loner on the back of a horse smoking a cigarette with an American flag blowing in the wind in the background, patriotism picked up.
Not during my time.
That was the unifying ideology that replaced the religion. Now,
not during my time, because the Vietnam vets were looked down upon. They were not respected for the sacrifice that they feel. And I know, because this is my era, they know they grew up in there where they were not respected. They know that when they came home, guess what? Our people looked at them as what?
Okay, let me rephrase
They were losers.
Let me rephrase it.
They were losers. They lost. That was the first time that we ever lost a war, is when they came home from Vietnam.
Okay,
and that's the reason why we had so many vets to be in the situation that they are right now, because we as a people did not embrace those people and understand the mental illness that they had, the physicality that they had to go through. We did not take care of those vets coming back.
All right, let me rephrase what
so
I said.
I can't see the patriotism took over Christianity. I can't see.
Let me rephrase what I said.
Okay.
I won't even say patriotism, because if it was true patriotism, we would have embraced the vets.
Yes.
I agree with that. It wasn't true patriotism. It was quasi-patriotism.
Sure.
Okay?
It's the same thing that happened at the towers, when the towers were hit with the airplanes.
Quasi-patriotism.
Everybody, you couldn't stay out of the churches. Oh my God, let's get back to God now, because they tore down this or whatever. So
that was
shortchanged.
That doesn't change the fact that it was a unifying ideology across the country. And right now, as this country stands, there is no unifying ideology.
That's true, because right now everybody's trying to tear it apart. And a lot of it, I feel, is the selfishness and the narcissism of one particular individual.
Okay, I mean, that's even a fair statement to make.
It's destroying our country. It's destroying the impact that our country has as a leadership role in other countries.
That's a fair statement
to make. And we have a gentleman over in Russia right now. And if we don't wise up, where he's going into Cuba and he's making friends with China and he's over here with this other dictator in North Korea,
you know what else is going on? The Russian
and all of a sudden,
and they love him.
And the Canadians that came out last week, I was doing research. The Canadians are preparing themselves
the Europeans are
for the second Civil War in the United States. They made that statement. They're actually doing preparations for it. It came out as much as 4 years ago, but now the Canadian country is planning for us to be able to have civil war. Now, you tell me, and all the administration and the people in the leadership that we've had, who in the world has mentioned civil war in the past? Who has mentioned taking up arms against our other people within our own country? And there's even the debate.
Biden just talked about it the other day.
What did Biden say?
He literally was talking about if people were to try to overthrow the government, that they would use F-16s on. The President of the United States.
In the United States?
The President, and I will pull it up and show you the video.
I'd love to see that.
The President of the United States was having a conversation, because they were talking about, if I'm not mistaken, the conversation was about violence after the electoral process.
Well, we got to close up.
We do. President Biden did say that it would be a waste of time. It don't matter how many guns they got, we have F-16s.
Well, the biggest thing, and I guess I'm going to conclude in this, I appreciate your thoughts. I appreciate
I enjoy the conversation.
The direction that you're coming, and I want this to be to our listeners out there too. Some of the feedback. These are questions, and these are comments, you all, that we're afraid to talk about. Our people, and particularly here, people in Eastern Kentucky, we've had a lot of heartache, and we've had a lot of disappointments, and but it can get better. But the only way is not going to put our faith in the leadership or this and that. It has to start right in here in your community. You've got to start coming together with whatever theology or philosophy that you've got.
That's something. We got to believe in each other.
Yes, we do. We've got to help each other. There's people out there that need help. And we have so many people think that people's trying to take advantage of somebody by helping them, by being in our areas on the welfare system or in food stamps and all that, so be it. If they're on that, let them be that. But I'm going to tell you, that doesn't solve all their problems, And everybody comes around here and they think that solutions and therapies and things that you go through, as far as in our area, drug abuse is a problem. And the reason that we have a drug problem in Eastern Kentucky is one reason. It's become recreation. I don't have anything else to do. There's nothing for me else to do to hang out with whatever. So let's just get together and have a little party here. And this makes me feel good, and I can forget about all this other stuff. How many families I've seen that happen, how many families I've counseled with that of happening.
Drugs and alcohol have always been seen
as
illnesses of despair.
Sure, it is a disease. It's not necessarily a morality, right or wrong.
Well, no.
It's a disease that people have to deal with, and they do with it in their own families and all that.
The reason it's called an illness of despair is because it's proven fact that the more economically or socioeconomically or societally downturned an area is, the more likely that there will be an epidemic of drug or alcohol abuse or violence.
There's got to be a dependency on something.
These are known as diseases of despair because the area that reaches out for them, when you look around at your society, if you see that your society is falling apart and there's nothing that you feel you can do about it,
sure,
that you'll start reaching out for something to numb the pain.
Absolutely, and that's what we've gotten. It's become a recreation and a cure-all and all that. Well, remember tonight, folks, you asked for it, so that's why we gave it to you tonight. And I appreciate Cody and his comments so much. Listen to people. Respond to people.
Enjoy the conversation.
Get in there with people. Talk about these things that we're talking about. You may not agree with us or whatever, and I welcome that. I really do. Because my faith needs to be challenged and all that. And that's why we're doing what we're doing. We want you all, we the people of Eastern Kentucky, to have a voice, to be able to get out and share your opinions, to get out and even, we can't do anything. Yes, you can. You can go vote. Some of these people. And I ask you, much like I did last week, go into your closet and do that when you're in that voting booth. It's just you. And you vote for the person that feels that's best going to represent you.
And primarily, I want to say this. Don't get angry. Enjoy the conversation.
Absolutely.
Terry and I have back and forth discussions. We talk about stuff that people reach out to us about.
Yes.
We enjoy the debate and discussion between each other, but we leave here respecting each other and enjoying the time we got to spend together. And that's what it's about.
And to be honest, in a nutshell, like you just said, Cody, this brings you and I closer.
Right.
And a lot of times people fight and they fuss and they scratch and they go their separate ways and things, and this person's wrong and I'm right and all that. Ladies and gentlemen, there's no right and wrong. Every situation that deals with people, and it goes back to the old Indian philosophy. You don't know what a person goes until you walked in their moccasins. So, but be conscious of those moccasins. Try somebody's on for a change. But with that, we want to thank the sponsors tonight, and we'll be back next week, next Tuesday, and we'll have a couple more guests coming here, and we'll have some good dialogue with them. If you want to be a part of what we're doing, let us know. If you support what we're doing, the openness that we're trying to do, give us some feedback for that. So with that,
if I don't see you tomorrow, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.
that's it. Good night, and God bless you all, folks. Thanks for listening.